There is a country on this earth where you can eat dinner at midnight and it is considered early. Where a nap in the afternoon is not laziness, it is a national institution. Where the sun seems to burn hotter, the music seems to hit deeper, and the food makes you genuinely question every meal you've ever eaten before. This country has been invaded, conquered, reconquered, torn apart by civil war, rebuilt from the ashes, and somehow emerged as one of the most magnetic, passionate, and breathtaking places on the entire planet. It has given the world flamenco, Picasso, Gaudi, paella, and a language spoken by nearly 600 million people. It is ancient and modern at the same time. It is wild and refined. It is quiet olive groves and roaring football stadiums. It is everything, all at once. We are talking about Spain. And today, we are going deep. Not just the postcard version. Not just the highlights reel. We are going to explore what makes this country so profoundly, almost unreasonably wonderful: its land, its soul, its history, its food, its art, its people, and the strange, beautiful, untranslatable spirit that holds it all together. This is going to take a while. Because Spain deserves that. Let's begin. Before you even meet the people or taste the food or hear the music, Spain hits you visually. And it hits you hard. Spain is the second largest country in the European Union. It covers over 500,000 square kilometers, and within that space, it contains an almost absurd variety of landscapes. This is not a country of one face. Spain has many faces, and each one is gorgeous in its own right. In the north, you have green. Deeply, lushly, almost Ireland-like green. Rolling hills covered in grass and forest, dramatic coastlines battered by the Atlantic, fog drifting through mountain valleys. It rains here. The air is cool and damp and smells like the ocean. If you told someone this was Scandinavia, they might believe you. This is not the Spain of travel posters, but it is no less stunning. Moving inland, the landscape transforms. The green fades. The earth turns amber and rust and gold. Great flat plateaus stretch to the horizon under enormous skies. This is the Meseta, the high central tableland that makes up so much of the country's interior. It can feel austere, almost harsh, but there is a majesty to it. The silence is vast. The light is extraordinary. In winter, it can be bitterly cold. In summer, the heat is relentless. It is not a soft landscape. It demands something of you. To the south, the land becomes almost North African in character. The heat intensifies. The vegetation changes: olive trees, orange trees, palm trees, cacti. The architecture shifts too. Whitewashed villages cascade down hillsides. The light is blinding and golden and honey thick. It is gorgeous in a way that feels almost theatrical, like the world decided to turn up every setting to maximum. And then there are the islands. Spain's island territories are among the most beautiful places on Earth. The Canary Islands, sitting off the northwest coast of Africa, are volcanic and dramatic: black sand beaches, ancient forests cloaked in mist, rugged lava fields, and peaks that disappear into the clouds. The Balearic Islands in the Mediterranean are a different kind of beauty: turquoise waters, limestone coves, ancient olive groves, and an atmosphere of timeless Mediterranean calm. Spain also has its mountains. Multiple ranges, in fact. The Pyrenees form a natural wall in the north, separating Spain from France. Peaks reaching nearly 3,500 meters, glacial lakes, brown bears, wolves, and villages that have barely changed in centuries. In the center of the country, other ranges rise dramatically. In the far south, the mountains plunge almost directly into the sea. The rivers. The wildlife. The forests of cork oak. The wetlands teeming with flamingos. The semi-desert landscapes that look like they belong in a Western film, because many actually were filmed there. Spain's landscape is a world unto itself. And it sets the stage for everything else. To understand Spain, you have to understand that it is very, very old. And that its history is not a tidy, linear story. It is a collision of civilizations, a layering of cultures, a story of conquest and coexistence, of tremendous beauty and tremendous violence. Humans have lived on the Iberian Peninsula for tens of thousands of years. The caves in the north contain some of the most extraordinary prehistoric art ever discovered, paintings of bison, horses, and deer made by people who lived here during the Ice Age. These images are hauntingly beautiful. They are also a reminder that the impulse to create art, to record experience, to make something beautiful, is as old as humanity itself. Then came wave after wave of settlers and invaders. Phoenicians, Greeks, Celts, Carthaginians, Romans. The Romans arrived in force in the 3rd century BC, and they stayed for centuries. They built roads, aqueducts, theaters, temples. They transformed the peninsula utterly. Some of the best preserved Roman infrastructure in the world can still be found in Spain. Aqueducts that still stand after 2,000 years. Amphitheaters where you can still feel the weight of history pressing down from the stone seats. Latin took root and eventually became the ancestor of the Spanish language. Spain was not just conquered by Rome, it became deeply, fundamentally Roman. Several Roman emperors were actually born on the Iberian Peninsula, including Trajan and Hadrian, two of the greatest rulers Rome ever produced. After Rome fell, the Visigoths swept in from the north. And then, in 711 AD, everything changed again. Muslim forces crossed from North Africa and swept across the peninsula with astonishing speed. Within a few years, most of the Iberian Peninsula was under Islamic rule. And it remained so, in varying forms, for nearly 8 centuries. 8 centuries. That is longer than the time between Columbus sailing to the Americas and right now. It is an almost incomprehensible stretch of time. And it left marks on Spain that can never be erased, and that makes Spain what it is. The period of Islamic rule in Spain, known as Al-Andalus, was one of the most remarkable chapters in European history. At its height, it was a center of learning, science, philosophy, and art at a time when much of Europe was struggling through the Dark Ages. Scholars in Al-Andalus translated ancient Greek texts and preserved knowledge that would later fuel the Renaissance. Mathematics, astronomy, medicine, agriculture, all flourished. And the artistic achievements of this era are staggering. The architecture alone, those intricate geometric patterns, those breathtaking courtyards, those fountains and gardens designed to be a paradise on earth, changed Spain's visual identity forever. At the same time, Christian kingdoms in the north were gradually pushing south in what became known as the Reconquista, the Reconquest. It took centuries. It was brutal and complex and not nearly as simple as the word reconquest implies. There were long periods of coexistence, of Christians, Muslims, and Jews living and working side by side. There was cultural exchange and genuine tolerance. And there was also tremendous violence and suffering. By 1492, the last Muslim kingdom on the peninsula had fallen. And 1492, of course, is also the year Columbus sailed west under the Spanish crown and stumbled onto a world Europe didn't know existed. The consequences of that moment, for better and catastrophically for worse, shaped the entire modern world. Spain became an empire. One of the greatest empires the world had ever seen. Spanish ships crossed every ocean. Spanish soldiers and priests and settlers fanned out across 2 continents. Spain's language, religion, and culture were transplanted, often violently, to the Americas. The wealth that poured back into Spain was extraordinary, and it funded a golden age of art and culture. It also funded wars that eventually exhausted the country. The empire faded. Spain went through centuries of decline, internal conflict, and struggle. In the 20th century, a devastating civil war tore the country apart, and a long dictatorship followed. Spain's transition to democracy in the late 1970s was nothing short of remarkable, a country emerging from darkness into a vibrant, modern, open society with a speed and spirit that astonished the world. All of this history, Roman, Moorish, Jewish, Christian, imperial, republican, fascist, democratic, is woven into the fabric of modern Spain. You can feel it in the streets. You can see it in the buildings. You can taste it in the food. Spain is a palimpsest, a document written over and over again, and if you look closely, you can still read every layer. Every country has a character, a set of values and instincts and ways of being that run through its culture like a thread. Spain's thread is vivid. The Spanish relationship with time is one of the first things that strikes outsiders, and it is genuinely remarkable. Spain lives on a schedule that defies Northern European logic. Lunch, the main meal of the day, happens around 2 or 3 in the afternoon. The siesta, that legendary midday rest, is a real thing in many parts of the country. Dinner doesn't start until 9 or 10 at night. Going out for the evening means going out at midnight. The night doesn't end until the early hours of the morning. This is not laziness or disorganization. It is a deep cultural commitment to the idea that life should be savored. That meals are worth lingering over. That rest is not a luxury but a necessity. That the night belongs to pleasure and conversation and music and laughter. Spain has built a civilization around the idea that living well is not a reward for working hard, it is the point of working hard. Then there is the concept of fiesta. And in Spain, fiesta is serious business. The Spanish festival calendar is extraordinary, a year-round calendar of celebrations, many of them ancient, many of them bizarre, all of them spectacular. Fire plays a huge role. So does noise. Running, throwing, singing, dancing, dressing up in elaborate costumes. Many of these festivals have roots in pagan traditions that stretch back thousands of years, grafted onto Catholic celebrations, transformed into something uniquely Spanish. The sheer energy of a Spanish festival, the color, the heat, the noise, the smell of gunpowder and flowers and sweat and food, is like nothing else on earth. There is also the concept of duende. This is one of those words that resists direct translation. It refers to a kind of spirit, a deep emotional resonance, a quality of art or music or even a moment in nature that makes the hair on your arms stand up. The poet Federico Garcia Lorca wrote beautifully about duende, about the way that great flamenco or great art has a quality of darkness and wildness underneath the beauty, like a river with a powerful current running beneath a calm surface. Spain, more than almost any other country, seems to operate in the territory of duende. Things feel more intense here. More real. More raw. And then there is family. In Spain, family is everything. The extended family, grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins, is not a peripheral concern. It is the center of gravity. Sunday lunch with family is sacred. Grandparents are revered and included. Children are adored and welcomed everywhere, including restaurants and bars late at night, because children are not separate from the world of adults, they are part of it. The warmth of Spanish family culture is something visitors feel immediately and almost universally. We need to talk about the food. We need to spend real time here, because Spanish food is one of the greatest culinary traditions in the world, and it is still wildly underrated internationally. Let's start with the basics. Spanish cooking is, at its heart, ingredient-driven. It does not rely on elaborate technique or complex sauces to elevate mediocre ingredients. It starts with extraordinary ingredients and trusts them. The olive oil. Spain is the world's largest producer of olive oil, and the quality at the top end is astonishing, green and grassy and complex, almost like a liquid vegetable. It is used in extraordinary quantities, drizzled over everything, used for cooking, eaten with bread. A plate of good bread with excellent olive oil and a pinch of salt is, in Spain, a perfectly legitimate meal, and it is not a sad one. The jamon. This is the soul of Spanish food. Dry cured ham, made from pigs that spend their lives roaming oak forests and eating acorns, is aged for months or years until it develops a depth of flavor that is genuinely profound, nutty, rich, complex, almost mineral. Sliced paper thin at the counter of a bar, eaten standing up with a glass of wine. It is one of the great pleasures of the table. Anywhere in the world. Full stop. The seafood. Spain's long coastlines mean the seafood is extraordinary. Squid, octopus, razor clams, percebes, those strange barnacles that look prehistoric and taste like the ocean itself, anchovies, sardines, sea bass, bream. The Spanish relationship with seafood is deeply intimate. They know how to handle it. A whole fish baked in a salt crust. Squid ink rice so black it stains your teeth. Baby eels sautéed in garlic and oil. The variety is staggering. The vegetables. Spain produces spectacular vegetables, and Spanish cooking celebrates them without apology. Slow roasted red peppers dripping with oil. Giant white asparagus from the north. Artichokes braised with wine and herbs. Tomatoes so ripe and sweet they need nothing more than oil and salt. Piquillo peppers stuffed with salt cod. There is a whole universe of Spanish vegetable cookery that most of the world has never encountered. The wine. Spain has one of the oldest and most diverse wine cultures in the world. Red wines that are aged for years, or even decades, in oak barrels until they develop extraordinary complexity. Crisp, refreshing white wines from the north. Sherry, that magnificent, misunderstood fortified wine, ranging from bone-dry and saline to thick and sweet and nutty, one of the most complex wines ever made. Cava, the Spanish sparkling wine, drunk with breakfast and with dinner and at all points in between. And then there are the tapas. The idea of the tapa, a small dish of food served alongside a drink, is one of Spain's great gifts to world civilization. The culture of going from bar to bar, standing at the counter, eating small plates, drinking small glasses of wine or beer, talking, laughing, moving on to the next place. This is not just a way of eating. It is a way of life. It is social and democratic and joyful. Everyone is welcome at the bar. The bar is the living room of Spanish society. Every region has its own food culture, its own specialties, its own ingredients. Spain's culinary diversity is almost that of a continent, not a country. And yet, threading through all of it, are those same core values, great ingredients, treated with respect, eaten with pleasure, shared with people you love. Spain's contribution to the history of art is enormous. Disproportionately enormous, in fact, for a country of its size. Let's talk about painting first. Spain produced some of the greatest painters who ever lived. El Greco arrived in Spain from Greece via Italy in the 16th century, and he developed a style so personal and so strange that it was essentially incomprehensible to his contemporaries. His figures are elongated and twisting. His colors are electric. His spiritual intensity is almost feverish. He was centuries ahead of his time, and today his paintings look like nothing else from his era. Velázquez, court painter to the Spanish king in the 17th century, was perhaps the greatest painter of the human figure who ever lived. His ability to capture light, texture, and personality is staggering. His masterpiece, a large group portrait of the royal household, is considered by many art historians to be the finest painting ever made. It plays games with reality and representation that anticipate photography by 200 years. Goya bridges the 18th and 19th centuries, and his work covers an enormous range, charming, pastel-colored court portraits at one end, and at the other, some of the most disturbing images ever committed to canvas. His late, black paintings, made when he was old and deaf and disillusioned, are visions of nightmare and despair that feel brutally modern. And his two great paintings depicting the Spanish resistance to Napoleon, one of the street scene before the executions, one of the executions themselves, are among the most emotionally devastating works in Western art. And then there is Picasso. Born in Spain in 1881, Pablo Picasso is arguably the most influential artist of the 20th century. He did not just create great art, he reinvented what art could be. Cubism alone, that shattering of the visual world into multiple simultaneous perspectives, was a revolution that changed painting, sculpture, design, and ultimately, the way we see. His Guernica, painted in response to the bombing of a Basque town during the Spanish Civil War, is one of the most powerful anti-war statements ever made. It is a howl of anguish in monochrome, and it has lost none of its force in nearly 90 years. Joan Miro gave the world a visual language of pure joy and color, biomorphic shapes and primary colors that feel both childlike and sophisticated, both dreamlike and intensely alive. Salvador Dali made the unconscious mind visible, watches melting over cliffs, elephants on spindly legs, impossible dreamscapes rendered with the technical precision of the old masters. He was also one of the most extraordinary self-promoters in the history of art, turning himself into a living artwork and a global celebrity decades before that was a career path. Then there is architecture. And here, Spain does something extraordinary. Spain has preserved its historical architecture with remarkable care. Roman ruins, Moorish palaces, Romanesque churches in remote mountain villages, where the stone is rough and ancient and the frescoes inside are still vivid. Gothic cathedrals that took centuries to build, their interiors soaring to impossible heights. Renaissance and Baroque churches that drip with gold and silver. And then there is the modernist explosion of the late 19th and early 20th centuries, which in Spain produced architecture unlike anything seen before or since. The most dramatic example, one man's vision so extraordinary it defies easy categorization, has been under construction for over 140 years and is still not finished. It is the most visited monument in the country. Its spires look like something between a Gothic cathedral and a science fiction vision of an alien civilization. It is made of stone and ceramic and concrete, but it feels almost organic, as if it grew from the earth rather than being constructed. It is simultaneously the most traditional building in Europe, a cathedral, and the most radical. Spanish architecture is not a museum. It is a living tradition. Contemporary Spanish architects are among the most celebrated in the world, designing buildings that honor the past while reaching confidently toward the future. If Spain's visual art is extraordinary, its performing arts are something else entirely. They are not something you watch. They are something you feel. Flamenco. There is no cultural export from Spain more powerful, more recognized, more imitated, and less fully understood by outsiders than flamenco. People think of it as a dance. It is so much more than that. Flamenco is a complete art form encompassing singing, guitar playing, percussion, and dance. Its roots are complex and contested. Romani, Moorish, Jewish, Andalusian folk music all seem to flow together in its origins. It emerged, in its recognizable form, in the 18th and 19th centuries, in the marginal spaces of southern Spanish society. It was the music of the poor, the oppressed, the outsider. At its highest level, flamenco is one of the most emotionally intense art forms on earth. The singing, called cante, can be deeply sorrowful, a raw, almost wordless cry of grief and longing, or it can be fierce and defiant. The guitar provides not just melody and rhythm but a kind of dialogue with the singer and dancer. And the dance, the stamping feet, the snapping fingers, the swirling skirts, the extraordinary control of the body, is an act of both discipline and abandon. The word duende, which we talked about earlier, is most often used in the context of flamenco. The great artists speak of it as almost a visitation, a moment when something takes over, when the performance transcends craft and becomes something else. Something alive. Something that makes the hair on your neck stand up and puts tears in your eyes even if you don't know why. Watching a true flamenco performance, not the tourist version in a nightclub, but the real thing, in a small, hot room where the artist is playing for an audience of peers, is one of the most extraordinary cultural experiences available anywhere in the world. But Spanish music doesn't begin and end with flamenco. Every region has its own music. The north has its bagpipes, yes, Spanish bagpipes, called gaitas, a legacy of Celtic culture, and its choral traditions. There is the haunting, medieval-rooted music of the pilgrimage roads. There is zarzuela, the Spanish operatic tradition. There is a rich tradition of classical guitar playing that has given the world some of the most beautiful compositions ever written for a plucked string instrument. And then there is the contemporary scene, Spanish pop music, independent rock, electronic music, urban music, which is vibrant and original and has been increasingly influential across the Spanish-speaking world and beyond. Spanish is the second most spoken language in the world by native speakers. It is the official language of 20 countries. Nearly 600 million people speak it natively or as a second language. It is a language that has spread across multiple continents and taken root in dozens of cultures, each of which has given it new words, new rhythms, new sounds. And it all started in a corner of northern Spain, in the medieval kingdom of Castile, where a particular dialect of Latin was spoken. Castellano, as it is properly called, spread south as the Reconquista progressed, and eventually spread west across the ocean to become the dominant language of an entire hemisphere. The Spanish of Spain is not a monolith. Within the country, there are enormous regional variations, accents, slang, vocabulary that changes dramatically from one part of the country to another. And Spain is also multilingual in a deeper sense. Catalan, spoken in the northeast and the Balearic Islands, is a full language with a rich literary tradition, not a dialect of Spanish. Basque, spoken in the north, is one of the most fascinating linguistic mysteries on Earth. It is what linguists call a language isolate, meaning it has no known relationship to any other language in the world. Its origins are unknown. It predates the Indo-European languages that swept through Europe thousands of years ago. It is, in a very real sense, a survivor from a world that no longer exists. Galician, spoken in the northwest, is closely related to Portuguese. Aragonese, Asturian. Spain contains within its borders a remarkable diversity of living languages and dialects, and the question of linguistic identity is one of the most politically charged and culturally rich debates in contemporary Spanish society. There is a broader point to be made about Spain, and it is this: Spain is one of the great pleasure civilizations of the world. Other cultures have their own ways of enjoying life. But Spain has elevated the pursuit of pleasure, not hedonism, not excess, but the deep, considered, shared enjoyment of life's good things, to an art form. The long lunch. The afternoon light. The cold glass of something refreshing after a day in the heat. The conversation that goes on long after the food is gone, because no one wants to be the first to suggest leaving. The paseo, the evening walk, taken by people of all ages, up and down the same streets, seeing and being seen, doing nothing in particular and finding that perfectly sufficient. The late night, the outdoor tables, the sound of children playing while adults eat dinner at 11 in the evening.